What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for the match review as Spurs went to Aston Villa in what John McGinn said is their biggest game of their history. I mean, he said it's their biggest game of the season, biggest game for many years for Aston Villa. He gets sent off and we win the game 4-0. An emphatic victory for Tottenham to put themselves ahead in the top four race. Well, we still are fifth, but I think that you can safely say Spurs are probably favourites for that top four race now, can't you?
Yeah, I think considering both teams have difficult run-ins, Aston Villa still in Europe as well. I think Tottenham definitely have the edge now when it comes to the top four race. And I don't even think it's just with the points and stuff. I think psychologically, what kind of a blow that kind of result will do for not just for Aston Villa but for Tottenham as well in terms of gaining confidence. This was definitely our best performance probably since the 10-game run earlier in the season.
Probably since the first 20 minutes against Aston Villa at home.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, you're probably right about that. And it's no surprise that it's come with the first time we've seen our fully fit 11 back in the back available and playing. For the first time since the first 10 games, which is so encouraging. And it was really, really great to play some great football. It was a real statement victory. And what I'm so glad is, we didn't let them off the hook once they went down to 10 and we kept going for more goals and we really put them to the sword and ended up with an emphatic victory. But it was a really, really great performance, a great afternoon. The Spurs fans were in full voice. The Villa fans, or what was left of them, couldn't quite believe what they were seeing. And really, really great afternoon for Spurs.
And it's so impressive because not many teams, if anyone, will go to Villa and have such an emphatic victory. They went a year with just consistent wins. I don't know how many, I think was it 17 wins in a row at home or something like that. Yes, they have dropped off a bit at home since then, but I feel like it really was a statement victory yesterday. I want to talk about the fans just before we move on to the actual football on the pitch, because from watching it on TV, the fans just seemed incredible. And with you being there, what was it like being in and amongst it?
Yeah, it was incredible. They literally never stopped singing throughout the whole game, and there was some good banter between both sets of fans. But it was Spurs obviously completely out-singing the Villa home crowd. You would have thought, with this being such a big game for Villa, the crowd would have been up for it. But maybe Tottenham, with the way they played, dominated possession, quieted them down a bit. They just didn't offer them that encouragement they were looking for. And obviously, and also I loved, how all the players came over to the fans after every goal, and it was a real party kind of atmosphere in the end. It was really great. It was a really, really great afternoon for the fans for sure.
I kind of sensed nerves from the Villa fans. They weren't singing in a stadium where it's usually rocking at home for Aston Villa. You did sense there was definitely a nervy atmosphere around that stadium. In terms of the game, first 10-15 minutes, I thought Spurs started really well. Brennan Johnson was at the thick of things. He was getting the ball, attacking his man, looking to create. I did feel like we were a bit sloppy in our passes, especially coming out the back. I thought like the only chances Villa created was from our sloppy passes from Romero, from Bissouma, playing out the back. And then when we did create those chances and did get in those positions where we could hurt Villa, that final pass again was a bit poor passing, but we did kind of correct that in the second half.
Yeah, I felt it was poor, but as well, Villa, set up in quite a pragmatic formation, very different to how they usually set up. At home, they usually play, 4-4-2, high pressing, really take the game to the opposition. You saw how they destroyed Man City, really, with that high press back in December. And they just went with a very different approach in this game, and I'm not 100% sure why. But in the first half, it did seem to be working a bit. They had those three centre mids, all very, very hard working and covering lots of ground. They had the three centre backs as well. And also what it meant was, because they had the wing backs, you had Udogie and Porro always going to the wing backs and stretch them. And because they got the three centre mids, our centre mids were occupied a lot. And so what it meant was, whenever there was a transition, it was constantly Bailey and Watkins up against Romero and Van der Ven in a 2v2. And there were some occasions where it looked like they might get some joy, but thankfully for us, Romero and Van der Ven, from a defensive point of view, were really on point in that second half and made sure they weren't getting any spare change or any joy out of those situations. I mean, if you're a Villa fan and you would have said before the game, look, Watkins and Bailey in a 2v2, you'll probably take that. You would think, we could get some advantage there, but maybe they didn't consider how good Romero and Van de Ven are, because they just made not easy pickings, but they just dealt with that front two so easy. Bailey barely had a kick, and whenever Watkins threatened to get in behind and look dangerous, there was either Van de Ven there to mop up and use his recovery pace, or there was Romero there to make a really good block and make sure that Watkins wasn't able to get any shots on goal. And I think he ended the game with 0 shots on target, which is very unlike Ollie Watkins, especially the form he's in. And I think that's a testament to how good they were in that first half, because in the first half was when Villa were probably looking their most dangerous. They were probably getting a few transitions, and they looked like they could potentially hurt us. But thankfully, Romero and Van de Ven were really on point from a defensive point of view, and that meant that because of that, we went into half-time at 0-0 instead of maybe 1-0 down.
Yeah, I mean, particularly Van de Ven. Anything that came his way, he gobbled up, super aggressive. It just doesn't look like anyone is ever going to get past him. And when you do get past him, his recovery pace just gets him out of trouble every single time. But I was frustrated at half-time, because I felt like we knew what we had to do to go and beat them. It was just that passing that really frustrated me on the day, particularly from Romero and Bissouma playing out the back. There was just passes like behind Van de Ven from Romero, which let Aston Villa spring on us. And at half-time, I felt like the opportunities were there for us. We just weren't being able to take them. That was the frustrating thing. And half-time comes, Ange clearly gets into them at half-time, because I think that all changed and it became a lot more crisper in that second half. And I spoke about over the last couple of weeks, Spurs being able to score in clusters. And whenever we do score, they usually do come in clusters. You saw in that Brentford game, in that Crystal Palace game. And it was the same again yesterday at Villa Park. We scored 2 goals in 3 minutes, in the 50th and the 53rd minute, in the start of the second half, and then right at the end of the game as well, in the 91st and 94th minute. But in terms of the first goal, what a goal that was. James Maddison getting in areas which we haven't seen him get in probably since those first 10 games of the season before he got injured. Arriving in the 6-yard box, and Pape Matar with an absolutely cross to die for, really.
Yeah. Before that goal, though, just important to mention, Van de Ven actually went off, didn't he? On 50 minutes, went off with an injury. Yeah. And you're probably fearing the worst at that point, because obviously we haven't how much have we seen of Dragusin since he's come in.
Enter the Dragon.
And also how busy Van de Ven was, during that first half. So the way we reacted to Dragusin coming on was really, really positive, and we scored very quickly after, as you say. Brilliant work from Kulusevski and Porro on the touchline, interchanging, breaking that Villa press, and Kulusevski plays Sarr in on the right-hand side. And what's so impressive about that assist from Sarr is that he's off balance. He looks like he's about to fall over. And how he digs out across of that kind of quality from that position while he's off balance as well is actually astonishing. It just goes to show how much talent Pape Sarr has. And the fact he was able to dig out across with literally centimetres to aim at, wasn't much to aim at between Martinez and Longley and Konsa as well in the centre. Really, we're talking a very, very small window he could aim at, and it was an absolute peach of a cross, Beckham-esque, you could say. And but let not take away from the finish from Maddison. Brilliant to get on the end of it on his left foot. He had to get there, and he had to control the finish on the volley past Martinez. It would have been very difficult for him to control that kind of volley. And you're absolutely right. I think Maddison's maybe guilty of hanging around the penalty box and coming deeper maybe too often, although obviously it benefits his game to do that, and he's great at doing it. But maybe we haven't seen enough of him making those kind of late runs into the box that we know he can do. And obviously we absolutely paid off in this occasion. It was a brilliant opening goal.
Yeah, it really was. And only a few minutes later, we get another one. We're capitalising off poor passing out the back from Aston Villa. Heung-min Son finds himself in a really good area. He spots Brennan Johnson out on the left-hand side, and Brennan Johnson with a deadly finish into the roof of the net. And I think that was just rewards for the endeavour that he showed in the first half.
Yeah, and what I loved about it was, first of all, Kulusevski involved again, which I thought actually in the first half he was having quite a sloppy game. Yeah. But he really came into his own in the second half, I felt, and was one of our better players. And again, involved in the goal. Really great pressing, robbing Tielemans of the ball after some sloppy play from Aston Villa. And as you say, quick interchange between him, Son, and Son actually had Kulusevski to his right. He had Brennan to his left. He could have picked either of them. They were both free. He picks Brennan on this occasion, and Brennan made no mistake. Really clinical finish. And you could see the confidence really now starting to flow through Brennan, because it was probably his best game in a Spurs shirt. And it was the first time as well he started a game on the left-hand side and really took the game to the opposition and showed what he's capable of. And hopefully this is a sign of things to come for him going forward, because he is starting to consistently get some goals and assists now, and maybe that's really giving him that confidence boost that he really needed, because he was coming under a lot of criticism. We know that he wasn't having the best of time of it maybe a month ago or so, but this performance was a real shot on the arm that hopefully that his season needed. And
he's got goal contributions in 3 of his last 5 games.
It's five goal contributions in the last 6 games.
This is incredible really for someone who's considered like a flop, basically. And I think Brennan is going from strength to strength in a Spurs shirt. I'm excited to see what the future holds for him. But after that second goal, I just felt like Spurs managed the game so well. We didn't panic. We didn't force things. We passed it coolly around the back. We passed it coolly around midfield. We were kind of toying with Aston Villa at that point. And I think that's what led to the frustration with John McGinn getting sent off. He goes in with a flying tackle on Destiny Udogie. And I think that was the frustration that came out as well. Not just sort of the way Spurs were managing the game, but how Destiny was playing on that day. I felt it was his best performance in the Spurs for a while now. He was getting the ball. He was being that bulldozer up and down the pitch. Nothing was getting past him defensively as well. And I think John McGinn took his full frustration out on him.
Yeah, at the end of the day, after that second goal, Villa were kind of chasing shadows a bit. Spurs were kind of making them run around. They were, as you say, keeping their cool, keeping their composure. Passing out in the back and just making sure that Villa couldn't get near them, essentially. And I think John McGinn, looking to maybe inject a bit of passion into the game, looking to inject a bit of fight from Villa, definitely went way over the top with this challenge. I thought it was wild. I thought it was reckless. I thought it was dangerous. And on top of that, he had absolutely no intention of playing the ball. And I think when you put all those things together, I don't think he can have any complaints about a red card. Obviously, there's been some debate on social media. Should that be in a red? Should it not? I thought it was a clear red. I thought at the time, maybe that's one of those dark yellows, but I've seen the replay a number of times. And I just think with the replay, it makes the challenge look way, way worse. And I think it's a horrible, horrible challenge. And I think the referee got that absolutely spot on. I don't think if you put in a wild challenge like that, I know he wasn't off the ground and it wasn't like a studs up slide tackle, but it doesn't have to be a studs up slide tackle to endanger the opponent and be a strong, reckless challenge. And that's exactly what John McGinn did. He just take a wild swipe at Udogie. And I don't think you can have any complaints that he was made to walk off that moment. I think Ezri Konsa as well, noticed while McGinn was walking off, he looked to McGinn, he just like pointed at his head, like indicating, look, you've lost your head, mate. And I think that was an indication, that was a consequence of Spurs, as you say, toying with Aston Villa at that time.
Yeah, he definitely lost his head, John McGinn. It was a ferocious challenge, it really was. And then after that, it kind of, for the whole of the second half, it was pretty much one-way traffic. Villa chasing shadows for the whole of the half. Spurs were creating loads of openings after that. And then it took until the 91st, 94th minute to Spurs to get on the score sheet again. Kulusevski finding Heung-min Son. And Son just makes those look so easy, doesn't he?
Yeah, a first-time finish, right into the roof of the net. You know what Son was like from that position. And obviously Kulusevski with a really great assist with his right foot. And I think that was a really good reward for a really improved second half. I thought they were finding it really difficult to deal with him down that right-hand side. He was looking back to his most confident best in that second half, Kulusevski. And obviously really great assist on his right foot, pulling it back for Son and right into the roof of the net. What I would say is in that period after the red card, I think it was like a 20-minute period, I was a bit frustrated because we had so many... I wasn't frustrated with how we were playing, but we were so in control, and we had it felt like we could have just scored whenever we wanted, and I felt like we got a bit complacent, like we were getting these openings, and a number of times we didn't take the shot when it was there, and we were just kind of overthinking things. And then obviously, but when we got that third goal, we knew the game was won. It was party time, and it was really good reward for what was a really dominant display. And it was really great for Son to get in on the act as well, because I thought once that red card happened, he was really getting involved and he was finding all sorts of spaces, and Villa can really live with him. And it was a really great finish.
In that moment, you're talking about after the red card up until the moment it was scored, it was almost like the old Arsene Wenger thing where you just trying to score the most perfect goal. And yeah, it wasn't happening for us at some stages, but I thought it was just an emphatic victory at a time that we needed it most. You're looking back at the time against Aston Villa early on in the season where we really should have been 3-4-0 up in the first half an hour. I mean, revenge was definitely had at Villa Park. But with that Timo Werner goal as well, right at the end, so good to see Timo Werner 2 goals in his last 2 games as well. And a really good finish from Timo.
Really clinical finish. That is not an easy finish. How to get that in the corner from that position on the first time as well from that angle. Really, really impressive. So maybe the confidence is flowing through him as well. Now he's got his first goal for Tottenham last week. Look how happy he was, went straight over to Sonny to give him a great hug. It was also really great to see another great assist from Son. I think he burnt past Cash down that left-hand side and then does a really nice cutback. He's aware of where Werner is, and it was a really great way to cap off what was a brilliant afternoon. And also on top of that as well, some really great cameos. I thought Bentancur was looking really sharp when he came on. I was really happy with him.
He put one on Matty Cash.
He did right at the end, which got a big cheer from the away end. I thought Højbjerg had a nice cameo. But I think
Højbjerg was doing all these pirouettes and turns and getting himself out of pitch. I mean, that was Højbjerg's best cameo in a while. Haven't seen him play that well probably since earlier stage of the season.
Yeah, really, really confident from Højbjerg. And I think obviously the special mention goes to Dragusin, who came on after 50 minutes and in a massive game at 0-0 where Van de Ven had a lot to deal with in that first half, and I thought he came on and was really, really great. I was really impressed with him. I thought he was composed. I thought he didn't look scared on the ball. He was willing to play passes forward, like good incisive passes. And there was a few occasions where Villa got in down the right hand side, and he had to stop a few crosses and use his athleticism to make sure that Spurs were winning the ball back. What I liked about him is when he made those blocks a lot of the time, he was actually winning the ball back for Tottenham rather than just like putting it out of play. There was one moment where he literally had to put all his body on the line, if you remember, which looked like a painful one. I think we all felt that one, but
right in the nuts.
Yeah, that was difficult, but obviously he got straight back off from the corner and was able to deal with it. So really encouraging. If that's the kind of level we're going to be expecting from him, that was a really, really great.
Yeah, to come in a game like that at 0-0 within about 4 minutes of the time he was on, it was 2-0 to Spurs. We scored about a minute after he came on. So I really like the performance from Dragusin. It is very annoying that Mickey van der Ven went off injured. Obviously, they said after the game it might not be as bad as first feared and he might not be out for too long. Maybe this international break will help us in that sense. But I think after seeing that Dragusin performance, I don't think we should have too many worries.
Yeah, I don't. Look, if he's had his time to settle in, maybe not chucking him in the deep end has helped him because he looked so comfortable when he was on, and that was really, really great. And there were so many positives. I don't think there were really any, apart from the Van de Ven injury, there were literally no negatives. I think everyone played well. No one really had a bad game in this one. So such a positive display. So many standout performances, and it was really what we needed. When we've got all our players back, even though we've got some decent results recently, the performances haven't been of the level where we know we can be. And this was the first time we're like, okay, I think that Tottenham team we saw in the first 10 games is back now.
Yeah, and it definitely seemed like that yesterday. I would say that Aston Villa were really poor. I was expecting a lot more from that Aston Villa team, in a game where John McGinn was saying it's their biggest game as a club for a long time. The fans just seemed nervy. They never got going in terms of singing and creating an atmosphere, which I was very surprised about. And I think that related to the team as well. The team never really got going. The only time that they did create was through our kind of wrongdoing in terms of passing out the back in the first half. They had one shot on target throughout the whole game. And I was saying in terms of our defensive solidity, this game and now the Crystal Palace game, we've hardly conceded a chance in both these games put together. And now you're really seeing that kind of defensive shape and defensive solidity that we had in those first 10 games where, we did concede a few goals in those moments, but we weren't conceding chance after chance like we have been doing pretty much since then. And with Van de Ven and Romero at the back, Doggy and Porro, who I thought both were immense, especially Porro. Like, how many times in that first half did Porro get us out of trouble from the way he was defending?
Yeah, I thought he was brilliant. Obviously, he had that moment where Watkins was offside, but he was through on goal, but he was able to deal with that somehow. Watkins decided to pass for some reason. But what I loved about Porro, yet again, is just that ability to break the press through his unbelievable passing range and quality on the ball. And I thought he was just doing that countless times. It was just so great to see again. As you talk about defensive facility, as our first clean sheet since Nottingham Forest away in December. So that goes to show how much we've been struggling to keep those clean sheets. But when you talk, and just to touch on what you're saying about Aston Villa, I completely agree. I think the fans came into this with a they were confident. I think, talking to, obviously, we spoke to Dan Bardell before the game, and he was confident, they're finding their form again. But maybe they were fed off what Unai Emery was trying to do, playing that 3-5-2, that kind of pragmatic style they were playing in that first half, where usually at home they throw caution to the wind, they press really high, they really go at teams, and they really try and force mistakes and take it to them. For some reason, I think Unai Emery's pragmatic side got the better of him in this one, and I felt like they went into this game with a mentality of not to lose rather than try to win, and they probably thought, if we get a draw, we keep that 5-point buffer, it's going to be a good result for us. And I think they, in the second half, Unai Emery did say, look, we tried to press a bit higher, a bit more aggressive, and maybe try to take the game to Tottenham a bit more, because we didn't have enough control in the game, and that was their undoing, because we start in such a pragmatic way and then you just try and flip it like a switch. It's not very easy to do that, and I think they were completely out of their rhythm in the second half, and I think that's a consequence of maybe Unai Emery maybe playing with some fear, managing with some fear, I should say, going into this game, rather than being confident and playing like Villa have done in some big home games this season. Yeah,
which is a surprise to me, because you look at that the Man City game where they completely dominated Man City from start to finish. You look at the Arsenal game where they got the result as well. They didn't worry about the oppositions those days. They stuck to their guns and played their own football, and they got the results. In this game, it felt like Unai Emery was overthinking things, change of tactics to maybe suit the way he thinks he could have stifled Tottenham, and it just completely worked against them.
100%. And I wonder what kind of psychological blow the result will have on them, because it's not just the result. McGinn's out for 3 games. We know Kamara's out for the season, so they're running out of options in centre mid to play the way they like to, in that intense way. So they got some tough games coming up as well. It's going to be interesting to see how Villa respond to that kind of result. But I really believe Tottenham did lay down a bit of a marker in terms of this top 4 race. They really showed Villa what they're going to be up against if they're going to be beating us to that top 4. And I think Villa looked scared at the end of that one, and I wonder how it will affect them psychologically going forward. It was such a great result, so damaging for them, and also there was an 8-goal swing in the goal difference. Which also, you never know, could come down to that at the end. Maybe not, but I think before that they were quite well ahead of us, and now we're 2 ahead of them. So an 8-goal swing, so that was really, really beneficial.
Yeah, well, look, it's no question about it. Spurs put down a massive marker yesterday in terms of the top 4 race. We are now 2 points behind Aston Villa with a game in hand, and what you're talking about with the psychological blow that it could potentially have on Aston Villa, if we next weekend potentially go above them with a game in hand, like how massive is that?
Yeah, then all of a sudden they have to start chasing. They have to keep up with our results, and we look like we're going from strength to strength. Whereas I know Villa have had some good results recently, but it's just, even in those performances, I still haven't been that convinced that they're playing as well as they were maybe in December. For some reason, they haven't quite reached those heights. In December, it felt like they were, blowing a lot of teams away. And now, they're scraping a few results through last-minute winners, and they're losing control out of games. And I wonder how long they can keep that up for without the results starting to suffer for that. And maybe this was a first sign of the results starting to suffer from that kind of play.
Yeah, and you're looking at their next 4 games. Wolves at home. I don't think that's a given that Aston Villa will win that. Man City away, Brentford at home, and Arsenal away, all in their next 4 games. So I think it's really important for Spurs to keep going now. And if we can get 3 or 4 wins out of our next 4 games, that should put some breathing space in between Spurs and Villa.
Yeah, I do expect some drop points for Villa. So I think if Tottenham do concentrate on themselves, I think we could put ourselves in a very strong position going into that very hard run in April, which obviously everyone's looking at. But look, if we can play like that against one of the better teams in the Premier League this season, and then you couple that with the fact that we've already gone to the Emirates and the Etihad and taken a point earlier in the season, why should we be fearing anyone right now? We shouldn't.
And if we can hit those levels that we did show in the first 10 games, I think yesterday was definitely a step in the right direction. If not, I think it was definitely comparable to those games in the first 10 games, if not even better. Like, it's our biggest win of the season, and away at Aston Villa, there's nothing to be sniffed at how good they've been at home for all season. So I think it's definitely a massive marker to put down, and you're looking at our next 4 games now. We've got Fulham away, Luton at home, West Ham away and Forest at home, and we got to be looking at close to maximum points in those next 4 games.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Fulham have been coming back into it a bit recently, but you still go there going to be favourites, expecting a win. I don't think a draw's a good enough result there. And then we got those home games against Forest and Luton, which definitely you expect 6 points out of that. And the only question is, West Ham, they always up their game against us. They did beat us at the Tottenham Stadium, but we're going to want revenge for that, just like we did with Villa. So, obviously, you want maximum points, but if we can keep playing like that, like we did against Aston Villa, there's no reason why we can't. Yeah,
I would say top 4 is firmly ours to lose now. That's what I would say. Would you not agree?
Well, we have to be in it for it to be ours to lose, I would say.
Yeah, but I get that, but I'm looking at the fixtures of the 2 teams, particularly in the next 4 games, and I do fully expect in 4 games' time there to be daylight between Tottenham and Villa and Spurs to be in that 4th position.
I agree. I think we're favourites. I said even if we got a draw, I still put us as favourites. If we would have lost, I think it swings to Aston Villa. But the fact we went and won that convincingly, I think Tottenham are definitely favourites now for that top 4 race. And it's very, very exciting come the end of the season. And if we win our next 2, I mean, say it quietly.
Don't do it to yourself.
Say it quietly.
Don't do it to yourself.
we could be 5 points behind Arsenal if we win our next 2 games, which would be mental. To think about it.
Because Arsenal don't play next weekend, and that's essentially what could be our game in hand over them, even though it's not our game in hand because that's Chelsea away.
Yeah, but we would be on level games. So
that's what I'm saying, yeah. So
and then they play City away.
And who do we play that week? Luton at home. So
if we win our next 2...
If we go into the last 8 games of the season, or will it be 10 games of the season or 9 games of the season, 5 points behind them, and surely anything's possible.
It would be bad. Look, I obviously don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, considering right now we're still...
As Ange says, dream.
We are, look, as of the time we're recording, we're 11 points behind, so, you can't expect them to get close to them right now. Obviously, they're well ahead of them and massively in the title race. But if we do get ourselves in a position where we're 5 points behind and they've got to come to the lane, I mean... I couldn't think of a more exciting prospect than that right now from this position.
Yeah, I mean, that game at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium against Arsenal is going to be fireworks. It's going to be absolute fireworks.
If we can get ourselves in that position.
Let's not run before we can walk. Let's concentrate on it game by game and solidify this top 4 spot before we start talking about trying to get above Arsenal or anything like that. But... look, for sure, it was an unbelievable performance yesterday. It was a marker that we put down. It was definitely a statement of intent of this Spurs team and where they want to be come the end of the season. And my only regret yesterday was not being there at the game yesterday, because I kind of had massive FOMO watching that on TV. Must have been amazing to be there. But that is your match review. 4-0 win at Villa Park. Let me know your thoughts on the game in the comment section below. Like, subscribe and comment. And as always,
come on, you Spurs.